Journey of Meaning, Part 3, when meaning begins to move. Now we can start to travel. People often talk about literal and figurative languages as if there is a clear dividing line between them. On one side, there is a simple description: a stone is hard. On the other, there is imagination: a heart is hard. Literal language tells us what the world is like, while metaphor helps us transform it into something new. The journey is much more gradual than that. The world doesn't suddenly lend itself to metaphor or symbolization, and reality doesn't disappear under the weight of imagination. Instead, the qualities that we have attached to familiar things, such as the hardness of stone, start to break free from those things. Hardness doesn't belong only to stone anymore. Warmth becomes something other than temperature. Flow is no longer the exclusive preserve of rivers. This breaking free of qualities from the physical to the figurative actually transforms how we think. When qualities can move from one thing to another, meaning can begin to travel. And this is the point where metaphor begins. Think of these expressions: a stone heart, an iron will, a warm welcome, a cold reception, a road to recovery, an economic climate, a window of opportunity, a stormy relationship. Most of the time, these expressions pass unnoticed in ordinary conversation. We forget that they are figurative, but they reveal the same underlying process. The physical world is still intact. Stone is still hard. Roads still connect places, and so on. But what has changed is that these familiar experiences are now helping us understand completely different ideas. We can now conceptualize making progress through the metaphor of traveling along a road because we know what it means to travel along a road. We can talk about bottling up our feelings because we understand what it means for something to stay inside a container, like a bottle. We can describe a bad relationship as stormy because we have all experienced the disruption and uncertainty of bad weather. So, what language is doing here is borrowing from experiences that we already share in the physical world and using them to make sense of new situations. And this is how meaning begins to travel without ever losing touch with the real world. This is what makes everyday metaphor so powerful. It does not leave the real world behind, and it keeps recognizing it. Recovery becomes a journey. Responsibility becomes a weight that we each carry. Hope becomes light. Understanding becomes seeing. And conversation becomes something that flows. Yes, these add color to ways of speaking, for sure, but they are also the mental tools that we use to make sense of ideas that are much harder to see or to touch. None of this happens by chance. The same patterns appear again and again. It brings concrete qualities to the abstract. It makes the abstract something that we can hold and contemplate when we ascribe concrete qualities to them. Physical qualities become ways of talking about our thoughts or emotions. Containers become our emotional lives. Buildings become institutions. Light becomes knowledge, while darkness becomes uncertainty, and so on. These are all very different metaphors, but they are all on the same basic journey. And that journey is not aimless. It moves along familiar paths, borrowing from the physical world to help us understand the world we cannot always see. At this stage, language is organizing reality as well as describing it. So even our most familiar metaphors stay close to everyday experience. We can always trace them back to something we have seen and known, felt, or done ourselves. Literature takes the journey on the next leg. It asks how far meaning can travel, while still allowing us to recognize where it came from. This is what we will look at in the next video. Thank you for listening. Mark Gibson, Kielder, United Kingdom, August 2026. Copyright asserted by Mark Gibson.